funny thing happened to me on my way to invading Earth. I am your worst nightmare. Believe that.
What's up, George? What's going on in the House of Craze tonight?
In the House of Craze tonight, we have Jason Pharo, and he's going to be talking to us about his creator-owned comic called The Convictor. We're going to be talking about that, and we're also going to be talking a little writing tonight, so check us out.
Let's get it.
We are the only show for independents all around, giving you a platform to spread your word all over town. Catch the Craze is the place to promote to your fans with the Dreamer, Medina, and Sam the Crazy Man. Subscribe to our show and never miss an episode. It's time to get your meds, listen to us on the go. Updated every week, we never miss a day. Join the squad, come on in. It's time to catch the Craze. If you are an independent, catch the Craze. Making moves on your own, catch the Craze. On your grind in the streets, catch the Craze. Join the movement, catch the Craze.
Yeah, George, we did it again. Come on now. You know you want to do it. Catch the Craze. Welcome to Catch the Craze Podcast. I'm your host with the most, Sam the Crazy Man Vera, and I am with
George the Dreamer Medina. What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to another exciting episode of Catch the Craze. We are not live today. This is a pre-recorded show. We haven't done this in a while. But yes, we will have a guest on our show tonight. His name is Jason Pharo. We're going to do our indie news today. We're going to get your meds today. We're going to be talking about a little bit of writing a little later on today. But yeah, no, welcome everyone. Please, if you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you like, comment, and do all of that other fun stuff. And but what's happening, Sam? What's going on with you? How are you doing over there today?
How am I doing?
How you doing?
Oh, let's just go to indie news if I can find it.
Oh.
In other news, Duty's coming. Duty's
right
coming.
To it.
Duty's coming.
No small talk, no nothing. Just right to the main event.
Yes, the Dudester is coming. And if you haven't signed up to the landing page, check it out. In fact, I gotta get that landing page. There. ¿Qué pasó? ¿Qué pasó?
¿Qué pasó?
No, I want this. I want that. Oh, there it is. There it is. Boom. If you haven't signed up to the landing page, it's right there. On Kickstarter right now. The link is in the summary. Go check it out. This is a laugh out loud, all ages comedy series you don't want to miss. I think in a world today where everything's a little cuckoo, I think everybody wants to laugh and just be kids again and just go off and just be playful. And this book is definitely playful. It's funny. It's I'm excited to bring them back.
Yeah, no, definitely. The Dudester is back, and if you haven't yet, like Sam said, make sure you go to Kickstarter. And actually, no, the link will be in the show notes, so you can go down there, click, and get notified when the campaign goes live next year, February 15th. Figured we're going to give you a little break between these campaigns for right now. It's just going to be us promoting the fact that Duty's coming in February. I also have a page a pre-launch page for Wonder Duck that's coming out in January. But right now, head over to Kickstarter or the link and follow the page. The live show on the 15th will be to launch Duty into space and to Earth. So the story, man, and for those who don't know the story, or for those who haven't been following us on the gram and on Facebook or any social media, Twitter or whatever, tell us a little bit about the story of Duty, Sam. Give them a quick little lowdown on what this story is about.
The story. Here's a story of a boy named Duty. Basically, he is this larger than life, egotistical, thinks he knows it all, arrogant alien from the planet Uranus, and he is sent to Earth on a recon mission to determine if we're a threat to his homeworld. At least that's what he thinks. It's really to get out of the hair of General Goatee, who is responsible for protecting Uranus, and he's responsible for also overlooking Duty, because Duty's father is the Emperor of Uranus. So, he's tasked with giving Duty assignments, so he sends him on a fool's errand, right? What harm could come from him going to this insignificant planet, the third rock from the sun? And so Duty, believing that he is the next coming, that he is better than everybody, that he's entitled to, leadership and accolades, he heads to Earth. But he forgets one important thing, and he forgets to refuel. And so his story starts when he crash lands, and that's when it takes off. So you'll learn a lot about Duty and his multiple personalities and his arrogance.
Nice. Yeah, no. And for those who are interested in finding out more, Sam has put together a group of little mini documentaries that he's going to be releasing throughout the time before the campaign launches. And I don't know if you're going to go into when the campaign launches, but definitely subscribe to the channel. There's one already up on the channel, a little bit behind the scenes as to how the story of Duty came about. So check that out for the origin story of Duty. I'm not going to spoil it here. Definitely go check it out. Get to that video and look and listen to some of the interviews that you've done in the past, because there's tons of interviews done from like freaking 15 years ago, 14 years ago. Years have passed, and they still hold up. But yeah, you talk about a young Sam on TV in San Diego talking about Duty. So make sure
He's
you
a dapper
go there
young
and
lad.
You don't want to miss.
Yeah, the cool
you don't
hair
wanna
and
miss
everything.
that. Mm-hmm.
I look like Moses' grandson.
Damn, not even Moses. You look. Oh man.
I gotta shave.
So definitely check that out. That's indie news. Another bit of business indie news that I don't know if Sam has forgotten, but he was actually on a show this Monday that just passed, the 13th. Where he talked to Mark Torres from It Came From the Radio.
Oh, see, I got the dates mixed up. Yeah, you're right.
That interview, that interview aired this past Monday. So please make sure you check it out. It Came From the Radio is a radio show that has been around for a very long time. Mark Torres is a very good friend of ours. He's been in the game just as long, maybe even longer than we've been doing this. So definitely check that out. Very good interview. It's funny because you didn't mention Duty in that one, because the plan was always to release the Crazies first.
Oh, that's what I was promoting.
Changed.
Yes, that's what I was promoting.
And then it changed. But it's still a good interview. Check out some of the just things that you guys talked about. Was very interesting as far as.
But it's amazing how much changes like that.
Yeah, well, that was like over 2 months ago. Like that was back in November, the beginning of November. So, yeah, thanks. And we were talking about that the other day on the live show, how things can just change just like that. You really don't know. You have a plan, and then something happens and it changes. Yeah. So that's one of those things. So it's hard to guarantee what's going to happen from here till even the summer. But Duty is coming, February 15th. That's already locked in. The page is out. It's committed. So that's out there. But yeah, check out that interview and give It Came From the Radio listen. Very, very good show. So that's also indie news. And then just like I said, just a little bit of business. On January 4th, I will be launching the pre-launch page of Wonder Duck, which will be out January 4th. We're going to have a live show I think is the day after we'll be live for our live show for New Year. Damn, New Year, bro. 2022 is coming. It's coming. Now, as far as next year, we were talking about that earlier. Conventions are still up in the air. Omicron is out there. It sounds like a freaking character out of a sci-fi movie.
Sounds like a Transformer.
It sounds like a Transformer. It's like
yeah, it's great.
Like he's out there. But it's serious business.
There's
so
talks of cyber warfare. This is crazy stuff, man.
it's
like
a lot of stuff.
I just want to
going on.
create. I just want
It's a
to
lot of
live and
stuff.
let live, bro.
A lot of stuff coming on.
Yo,
Mr.
these
Elon,
humans are just crazy, bro.
Elon Musk has been named, I think, Person of the Year in the Time magazine. Kids trying to get us out of here and into Mars and stuff.
Because he knows what's happening. He knows that we're gonna. We're what is that? What was that rap song? Self destruction. You're headed for self destruction. That's what's happening. We're planning on just demolishing ourselves. It's crazy,
dude. We've been on that track for a minute. But and this is where like we like creators like us are so important, because not that we should just ignore what's going on in the real world, but these kind of stories are that escape.
Yes.
It's a bit of escapism in all of this freaking craziness that's going on in the world today. I mean, look at those tornadoes and my heart goes out to all those families in Kentucky, Arkansas, and Illinois.
It's crazy.
The people that were working at that, there was a candle factory where people were working, and the people at Amazon who were working, trying to get packages out for Christmas. It's just
because those facilities aren't built to handle that.
No,
they're just four walls and light and electricity. They're not built to withstand winds like this.
Where do you hide? Like, where do you go for shelter? Like, how far you have to run to get anywhere near a shelter? I mean, I don't know how they design. They're freaking nuts.
I can't comprehend the trauma, the fear, knowing that it's coming your way, and there's nothing you can do.
Right. Yeah,
man. It's the scariest thing, to think about that like that. Your whole world just changes.
Yeah, no, for real, for sure. And so our heart goes out to those families that lost so many, loved ones, especially around this time, dude. I hate when things like this happen around the holidays, bro. Like, it is just so freaking sad, dude. Yeah. Like, so sad. But yeah, so in times like this, stories like the ones we're putting out where like, for example, he's alien in my toilet, just something to laugh, something different, man. And so we're bringing them out there it is. There's an alien in my toilet. But yeah, so that's happening. Next year we'll see what happens with the conventions. We were talking about that earlier today. See where we are with some of these conventions. MegaCon has been one of those conventions that I have family in Florida. I really would love to go do that convention, but we'll see. We'll see where we are. Until it's booked, we can't confirm. And even if it's booked, we can't confirm, because we don't know what's going to happen from now until May when that happens. So hopefully everything starts getting back to some kind of normal. We've been saying this for the past 2 years.
Yeah, I don't know, and it's just. Everything's so unpredictable. You don't know. At the end of the day, we're just we're creatures, and so if Mother Nature wants to shake things up, there's nothing. No matter how much preparation you can do, nothing can prepare you from a typhoon. Nothing can prepare you for a tornado, an earthquake. Mother Nature owns this planet. We're just renting.
We're little viruses, bro. We're just eating it away. Yeah. Sometimes she's got to shake it and make things happen. But yeah, no, it's still the loss of life is just freaking crazy.
It's crazy. I mean,
it really is crazy, man. But yeah, no, let's move on to our next topic of the day. Yes. Sam, how about we do that?
Yes, let's do it.
It's time for your medicine.
How many pages in a comic book?
How many pages in a comic book? Who decides that, right? Who decides how many pages in a comic book? Like, what the hell? Is there a page count? Should there be a page count? Should we limit ourselves to a page count? What are your thoughts on the idea of how many pages there are in a comic book?
I think so that's a great question, because traditionally, people are programmed to do a 24-page comic book to be able to have 4 pages of cover, because that's part of the page count, and then 4 additional pages of promo stuff, whether it's the cover for the next thing and the ads, whatever.
Yeah.
But then you think about the restraints that you're under to make sure that you have a start, middle, and end in those 24 pages. But then on the flip side of the coin, it's let the story dictate the number of pages, right? Let the story. Let the story determine how many pages, right? I think an example of that is Forbidden, right? I think Forbidden issue 0 was 16 pages. Forbidden issue 1 was 27 pages. Forbidden issue number 2, 32 pages. Forbidden number 3, 37 pages, right? So it just grew. It just morphed into something, into an anomaly, is because my writing just ran, and so I think if you're going to stick to the standard recipe, it's 24 pages. But I think if you're going to let the story just flourish, then, it'll take you where it takes you.
Yeah, and I think that part of what you're saying is part of the beauty of being an independent. Because if you're asking us how many pages in a story and you're working for, say, a Marvel or a DC or an Image or some of these, whatever company you're working for, and they have a page count that they need you to write, then you need to write that page count, whether it's 20, 22, 24, 32, whatever it is that they want you to write, that's what you're going to write. When you're an independent, then you can take the route that Sam does. You can do whatever you want. Look at him, 37. He's not even doing multiples of 4 anymore. He's just like whatever pages there are on there. Because in reality, for a printer to print your book, you need at least 4 pages.
Yeah.
Because it's in multiples of 4 that they're going to print these pages. So you at least need 4 pages of story to print out a book, to send it to get printed somewhere. So you can start with 4, but you can go up to as many pages as you want. And if your story is in an anthology comic book, then you can write a page story, 2-page story, you know what I mean? So like, it really, when you're an independent, that's when you have the liberty to do whatever you want with your stories. When you start working for, the other guys, the big dudes, or any company, that's when you kind of are restricted by what you can write. And but you know what? I think also part of writing, and like you said, let the story flourish. But you also kind of need to be your own
editor.
Editor, because you don't want to just ramble. Yeah, you have the liberty to write as many pages as you want, but you don't want that to turn into, oh, I'm just writing 52 pages because I can. It's got to make sense. You know what I mean? Like, if you can tell it,
it makes sense.
In 48, if you can tell it in 48, if you can tell it in 48, tell it in 48. If you can tell it in 24, tell it in 24. There's really no need to go that far. The other thing is, if you're not an artist, you got to pay the artist to draw all those pages.
Yes,
so
I did.
How many pages?
That was a lot of cheddar, whole lot of cheddar.
So how many pages in a comic book? It really depends on a few things, right? If you can afford more pages, write more pages. If you can't afford to write more pages,
good thing I did it when I wasn't a brokepreneur.
Right.
Because I can't do that now.
Right. Yeah, because then you would have had to take that into consideration, right? Like, damn, how much is this guy charging me per page? Ooh, yeah, I'm gonna have to cut this out. I'm gonna have to cut that out.
Yeah, because I was like, wait, oh yeah, I got my bonus coming. I'll take that out of the bonus. Bang.
Ooh, there you go. Here you go, sir.
Right.
And thank you very much for your work.
That's it.
Right.
Now I don't got a bonus. I just have pork and beans.
That's it. So writing a comic book, obviously, just make sure, like Sam said, have a beginning, middle, and end. And this is for the young, creators who are starting to get into the business. This isn't for the older heads like us who have been doing this for a while. If you can take something from this, cool. But writing a comic book, it's about getting that story on a piece of paper that makes sense. You still have to have a beginning, middle, and end. It's like any other writing, right? It's like writing a novel. It's like writing prose. It's like writing a screenplay or writing, a play, anything. You still need to have all of those elements in your story. Yeah. It's just a matter of, at this point, can you afford to write more pages?
Yeah, I just think, again, like for instance, like when I wrote Forbidden, it was it needed to be written that way, and I think the characters just took me on a trip, and so I couldn't end it at a 24-page because it wouldn't make sense to have somebody wait that long to figure out what just happened. I think typically you always you end off the consecutive issue with unanswered questions. But if I left it at 24, there'd be too many unanswered. It would just I would lose the reader's interest. So that's why that book, the way it's written, was written. It wasn't ideal, from a printing aspect, because the more pages you print, the more it costs. But it was ideal for the story. So
printing cost.
Yeah, so that's why I compromised and I just let the story be the story, and I didn't want to just to limit myself to trying to force those specific arcs into 24 pages.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I was writing. So I was writing I was supposed to write an 8-page story for one of our fellow indie creators. They're putting out an anthology, and he's like, George, I'd love for you to write an 8-page story. I was like, cool, no problem. He gave me the character and whatever it was, and so I started writing the story. And as I started writing the story, I realized, dude, I can't tell the story in 8 pages. I'm going to need more pages, And so I wrote. So what I do is I always say to myself, write more. You can always edit later. Just write what you have to write, and then at the end, you can always come back and say, okay, I really don't need that. I really don't need that. I really don't need that. But some stories I think need a bit of a setup, right? It needs to kind of like build up so that it's a better story being told. And so for this story, I wasn't able to do it in 8. It just wasn't going to work in 8 pages because there were a lot of things that I wanted to show that to develop that character and to make you care for that character.
Right.
And so 8 pages wasn't going to do it. So I think it ended up being 11 or 12 pages. And it's going into anthology. He was cool about it. He's like, yeah, dude, no worries. Yeah, go do what you got to do. And so he was cool with it. But there may be times when you're working with somebody who they may say, nah, dude, I need this to be 8. Yeah. And then you gotta figure it out. You gotta figure it out.
It's different when you're doing work for someone else versus yourself. Mm-hmm. Right, I think when you're under specific, restrictions and guidelines and expectations, and you have to meet those expectations. I think when you're working for yourself, what works for me is I become the characters. I live through the characters, so I walk in the eyes of the characters, and I watch the story play out. It's almost like playing off the meta world, right? You go into this alternate world, and I'm seeing it as it's playing out, and that's how I build it. But when you're working for somebody, when you have to do something for somebody else, you have to make sure that, all right, so here's my premise, here's what I need, and now I have, say, 8 to 10 pages. You break those pages into 3s or 2s and a half or whatever. He says, all right, I need a start, middle, and end in this section. Give them enough to draw them in and leave them with enough to be able to say, I want more. But how do you do that successfully in that with those restraints, with something that's new, something that they've never seen before, and still keep the interest, right? Yeah. So that's where you have to be creative as a creator, and I think that's where the process of story development comes into play. That's when I use a dry erase board, and I do almost like a forensics board, and I just try to piece things together to try to make as much sense as possible when I'm writing, so that way, when it's time for whether it's me drawing it or somebody else drawing it, it makes sense, and the meat and potatoes. So you get your 4-course meal. So how do you get your 4-course meal with a 10-page anthology? 8-page anthology, whatever it is, you still got to, fuel that appetite.
Yeah, I remember. So the books that I've published so far, which is Russ 5377, and then the Adventures of Wonder Duck. Russ, I wrote that so long ago, and I remember writing 24-page scripts. So I said, okay, issue 1's going to be 24, because at the time writing those books, I was like, I'm going to write this the way I would write a comic book for Marvel or DC, right? Where it's just 24 pages, and that's where that ends with a cliffhanger, and then your next 24 pages, and I did that for 6 issues. So the book ended up being about 144 pages, obviously the graphic novel, and there's that. When I started writing The Adventures of Wonder Duck, which was a few years after that, I started writing 22 pages, and I wrote that in the vein of, if this was a cartoon, cartoons usually were about 22 minutes. By the time you put the commercials in, it's a half-hour cartoon. So I wrote that, and I had that number in my head. It's going to be 22 pages. At a certain page count, this is going to happen. This beat is going to go here. This beat is going to go there. So I planned all of my all of my scripts out so that they would all end on that 22-page count, and then you'd have the next thing. That's what I did. That's not what everybody should do, or that's not what it's just whatever you feel comfortable doing as an independent creator. We talked about if you're hired for somebody, it's something different. But when I was writing for myself, I did want to almost give myself that, okay, try to write that. I don't know, and that was years ago, dude. I don't know what I would do now. I think now, I started writing a couple of scripts, and now I'm at the point where it's like, I'll write till the story ends. Like it's a whole different mentality now that I'm writing as an older person than I did when I was a younger writer.
Extremely older.
It's interesting. Yeah. Ancient history, old.
Yeah.
Like
no, all of the Alien books are 24 pages.
Right.
So I wrote all of them that way.
And you did that on purpose?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those were intentional. And Cosmic Wars, they're all 24 pages with the exception of the preview issue, which was 16 pages. Right. But so everything before that was 24. For some reason, when I was writing Forbidden, I got rid of the shackles and I just decided to just let it flow.
Yeah, you were like, I said, hold up. You were like, I'm going in.
You know me, when it comes to rules.
That's the older you. Because the first issue of Forbidden, like the Zero issue, let's just say the Zero issue, that was 16 pages. And Zero issues were 16 pages. That's how long they used to be. And then the first issue was 24, which is what they used to be. The second the
first issue is 27.
The first issue is 27?
Yeah.
That's how many pages Aniba drew? 27.
Yeah.
And then the issue after that started getting bigger, right?
That one's 32.
Yeah. And 32 pages is still the size of like what they would call almost like a double-sized issue, or maybe even 48 was double-sized issue. So those were still normal even in the world of comics.
You're getting 8 additional pages of story that you would not normally get in a regular comic book, So you're really going to feel that appetite. And I think I don't know if I did it again when I wrote it. I don't know what was on my mind. I just know that when I was done writing that issue, I was like, "Oh, I got 32 pages." That's basically what happened. I was like, "Oh, that's gonna be interesting." Yeah, I was like, "Oh, that's gonna be interesting." And and then I was like, then when I outlined everything, I said, "Can I break these up to make them all 24?" And I was like, "Nah, it doesn't make sense to me." So I just left it the way it was.
Yeah, and when we were writing even the Crazies, for example, those are 24-page books 24. Also. Yep. Those are 24-page also. But and a lot of that again, it costs money. The more pages you have in a comic book, the more it's going to cost you to print it. Yes. So there has to be some kind of like control because if not, you're going to end up paying a lot more money to print the book. Yeah. And you don't know if you're going to be able to afford it. You
don't know. And that's the challenge, where, I think I didn't anticipate becoming a brokepreneur, right? And, so, which is why Kickstarter is so important, because it helps offset that cost, to have to now print it. Because, I paid for a colorist and I paid for an artist for this, and those were very expensive.
And you know what? I'll say this. Kickstarter is supposed to do that. It's supposed to offset the cost, right? It doesn't always. It doesn't always, right?
I can attest.
Yeah. and that's the other thing that you have to be careful of, because just because you have a Kickstarter doesn't mean that's going to fund your book. Because there's a lot of work that goes into that, and you got to offer other things on top of just the comic book to make up some of that money, and that's where the money goes. And now you got to actually ship it to somebody, and that's going to cost you more money. And the materials to ship the book in is going to cost you. So it's crazy how it's just a ripple effect, right? Yeah. You think, okay, I'm going to write this number of pages. It's going to be a 24 or 32 page book. I'm feeling it. It's a great story. I need 32 pages. Then you go to the printer, it's like, oh, I'm going to need how much to print it? Oof, okay, let me go do a Kickstarter. And then you do a Kickstarter, and it's like, ooh, I didn't make enough. Hope I can, cover the cost of shipping this thing, because now I got to ship it. So it all starts with that, I guess, in a sense, sometimes.
Yeah. And that's the part of it. Everything's unpredictable. And I think, which is why, like, for me, I really just want readers. So if I had 100 backers who just got a $5 digital copy, I'm fine with that. That means, I didn't have to print anything, and ship everything and package everything and supply everything, all that stuff, whatever. So, I mean, for me, it's all about the readership. But again, there is no right or wrong. I think, the standard rule is 24 pages, start, middle, and end. But as an independent creator, it's your playground. You figure out what works for you and what works for the story. No two stories are the same. I think Forbidden is the only one that's very different. Everything else that as far as comic books, Cosmic Wars, There's Nail in My Toilet, they're all 24 pages.
And I think it has to do with the material too, though. I think this wasn't like a lighthearted story that you're gonna just kind of have fun in. This has some depth to it. As far as I'm not saying that the other stories don't, but they're lighthearted. You can kind of say, all right, I'm gonna write 24 pages in this one. On Forbidden, it's almost like, all right, I'm just gonna write.
Yeah.
I'm gonna write this story. I'm gonna write the hell out of this story.
So that was another episode of Get Your Meds.
Yes,
I see that our guest is in the waiting room.
Awesome.
So we're gonna run to commercial break, and when we come back, we're gonna be talking to Jason Pharo. Here we go.
Are you sitting at home wondering how you're going to spread the word about that Comic-Con that you're about to appear at, and you want to get some press? How about your first book signing? How do you spread the word so you can get an audience there? Or that first panel at a Comic-Con? Who do you talk to? Or even your first crowdfunding on Kickstarter or Indiegogo? The world is turning to podcasting to get the word out. Why not you? Sponsor an episode of Cast the Craze and start promoting yourself today.
All right, we're bringing in our guest now, Mr. Jason Pharo.
Let's see. Can you guys see me?
No.
We see a black screen.
Cool.
It's like you're in the witness protection program.
Yeah, what is up with that? Why doesn't it work? I don't know why it's not working. I gave it permission to use the camera.
It's funny though, because usually we don't get the sound until much later. So we'll see.
So you at least you're getting the sound, right?
Yeah, we're hearing you loud and clear.
Yeah,
we're just
I don't
not
understand.
getting the image.
Let me go into my camera setting and see what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's got me right here. I can see my ugly mug right here. But yeah, I don't know. I like it. It's weird. You guys, I'm not used to Zoom. Like I usually do like StreamYard and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
but
StreamYard's coming because Zoom is really doing this.
Bro, yeah, like I'm trying to switch the camera around and I don't know.
That's weird. You want to go back out and come back in, see if you can.
Yeah, let me see. I'm checking. It says select camera. I'm using. Okay, hold on. Let's see if you get my face now.
There you go.
Oh, there he is.
There it is.
Got the T-shirt. Look at that. All right. Glad you got it working. Welcome back, everyone. We're here with Jason Pharo, and we're going to be talking to you about your really good comic book. I read the sample that you sent us.
Okay.
Excellent stuff. I have so many questions about your world, but like Sam likes to say, let's start from the beginning. Let's get down to the nitty gritty, all the way back to when Jason Pharo was a little kid. Talk to us about your journey through this comic book thing. How did you get into it? Were you into comics when you were a little kid?
Oh my God, yeah. I'm old as hell, so I'm almost 50, and I remember watching like Spider-Man, the '60s cartoon that was replayed over and over. Like that was huge as a kid, and Super Friends. Come on, I mean the 1960s Batman and Robin. In the '70s there was a Shazam live action TV show, Wonder Woman, all that stuff. Like '70s was a hell of a time, man. And like I cut my teeth on all that stuff. And I didn't really consider drawing. I mean, I had Mego action figures, you name it, I had it all. And I never considered drawing any of it until my mom one day got me a Spider-Man coloring book, right? I don't know how that was, and it was really epic. It was like Spider-Man and the Green Goblin were on the cover. I actually think Romita drew it, and it was cool because I just started tracing it. That's why I just sat down one day. I was looking at it and I was like, man, this is really cool. I said, So I put a piece of paper over it, started tracing it, and believe it or not, that's how I kind of taught myself anatomy.
Nice.
Way back then, I mean, it wasn't great, but I kind of figured out that's where the muscles and stuff. So I started my drawing. I mean, I could always draw. Like I said, if you saw the thing I sent you guys, like I was drawing like the stupidest stuff you could think of as a kid. Like giant sharks and all this crazy shit, man.
I was cracking up when I read that.
I remember getting yelled at in 3rd grade. My teacher's like, "What is this?" It's like this. It's like I didn't even know what a megalodon was as a kid. All I knew is that this massive shark was literally eating the size comparison was like a human being to like gnats. Like the divers are like gnats. That's how small they were.
You have it written there like 200-foot shark eating like school of divers, and I'm like, did you get called to like the principal's office for joining this thing?
Now this is like, I remember my 3rd grade teacher, she snatched it off my desk and she's like, "What is this?" And I'm like, "It's a shark." So, I don't know, because Jaws was big in the 70s, you know what I mean? The first Jaws came out, so every kid loved that, and so I kind of started my whole process right there. I just started drawing. My mother was artistic, so I inherited that from her too.
Nice.
Yeah, that's where it started, man.
Nice. Nice. And was that what interested you in collecting figures as well?
Oh God, yeah, man. I had, like I said, I was like the surprise baby for my parents, right? Like I'm 17 years different between me and my older brother, so it was like being an only kid. Wow. My parents spoiled because they were at a different stage of their life. They were like almost 40.
Right.
They didn't have, because I have two other brothers and a sister, and they're all older, and so they were like, it was like a new kid. My brother still teases me to this day, like, you got everything, we got nothing. You know what I mean? I'm like, it's not my fault. So I had, looking back now, I mean, it was out there, the original Star Wars line. I was big into that. Like I said, Mego, all the original Mego line where you had Marvel and DC and there was a Mego. I had Mork from Mork and Mindy. I had Migos from Happy Days. I had all that stuff. And
Nano.
Yeah, exactly. Nano, that's right. And and then we so I was big into that, and then like Battlestar Galactic action figures, and then Buck Rogers. Came out.
Wow.
Buck Rogers was the man.
That was
Those toys were the best damn toys ever made at the time. They were really tight considering what they were, and so I had it all. So I was really into collecting. Obviously, I collect as much as my wife will allow me. She doesn't realize I got boxes of stuff from when I was a kid still. So I pick and choose what I put out there. This is like, but
do you still have some of your old stuff, Jason?
Oh yeah, a lot of it's up here. I got that Venom. That's a big Venom's like a '93 Toy Biz Venom.
Wow.
I got the original Spawn with the wings, that flip out wings. What else I got back there?
So
Captain
cool.
America, Toy Biz Captain America. I got Visionary, one of the
Visionaries. Wow, nice.
Yeah. And you remember what was Sectors? Sectors.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I got Skulk. I just knocked something off my
You
shelf.
got Silverhawks?
I got Skulk, right?
Nice.
Skulk from he was my favorite because he came with this big ass spider that you put your hand in,
right?
And you sat on it and you could ride it around. I was like, I had all that shit, man. I got some of the Power Rangers stuff back there, VR Troopers stuff like that.
Yeah. No, that's cool, man. That's
eclectic is the word.
Yeah. Did you go from collecting action figures to now collecting comics at that point?
I didn't. I guess you could say I was collecting action figures, but I was just really playing.
Yeah, you were just a kid. Yeah, you were just buying toys.
Trust me, if I had all that stuff I had then, I'd be like,
in boxes? Are you kidding me? Forget about it.
You didn't even know. As a kid, you're like, you rip that stuff open. You play the shit out of it, and then you're like, right? And you're like, you find out 25 years later it would be worth like $10,000.
Yeah, like these are worth something? What the hell?
Yes. So I got into comics. I don't necessarily remember what my first comic was, but I remember I think I really got into, at the time, there was a local comic book store in the 80s. I went there and I immediately like blew my mind because I think the first time I stepped in one, I saw The Dark Knight Returns, like that, the original. And that that was crazy because you see Batman on the '60s TV show and Super Friends. You're like, oh, that's Batman, and then you open the book, you're like, oh my god, Batman's beating the shit out of these guys, and you don't realize like that was a whole other Batman, and so that kind of sparked my interest, and I was very big into Marvel. I was more of a Marvel guy initially buying comics than I was anything else. I didn't even realize it at the time, but the very first indie comic I got was TMNT, Eastman and Lard's original black and white from the 80s.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know what an indie comic was. I mean, shit, what was that? 10, 12, 11, 12? And I just thought it was cool. It was like Ninja Turtles and they got a dumb name. You're not used to and all that stuff. You didn't think it was going to be a cultural phenomenon. But so I remember I had that. And I collected mostly Marvel. I was big into the handbook, the Marvel Universe handbooks that gave the character reader. I loved all them. Yeah. And I was big time into my main books I collected was Moon Knight. I loved Moon Knight.
Oh, Moon Knight was...
which is huge now, which I still have those books.
Right? Yeah. So, I remember, like, I loved Moon Knight and I loved Ghost Rider when I was younger. Yeah. And so I created a character called Moon Rider or some shit like that. Just because I liked those books so much. It was Did you have like characters that you started creating off of some of these?
Actually, the convictor, this guy. I remember I was in middle school. It was maybe 10. I don't know if it was before I was 11. So a buddy of mine drew me the Punisher, right? And kid in school, drew me Punisher, gave it to me. And he was a better artist than me. So, it's like one of those things. You're like, oh, it's cool. Thanks for giving me that artwork, dude. Trying to show off, right? But he gave it to me. It was cool. And I was playing with it one day. I was looking at it. I was like, man, how awesome would it be if the skull wasn't here, but it was here? Because I never, at that point, I didn't come across Crossbones in any Avenger books or anything yet. So I played around. I put it on his face. I was messing around with that. And what ended up happening was, at that time, I was big into Daredevil. I love Daredevil comics. I also really, again, the Ninja Turtles. And I was massively into G.I. Joe. Like G.I. Joe was my main collecting. That was my main jam in the 80s. And so Snake Eyes and Firefly and Storm Shadow were my three favorites. Yeah. So my character kind of reflected that. Like I started drawing this guy and I'm like, all right, so maybe he's like the Punisher, but maybe he's a ninja. So he became a ninja, and then I really like Ninja Turtles. I put tassels on his mask. Right. And originally his name was because he's the Punisher. I'm like, oh, what else like Punisher? Convictor. That sounds like the Punisher. And whatever. And so I did that, and that's kind of where it grew from there. And I had a lot more influence because the characters I've had now for 37 years. Yeah. And so it's spanned. So I've been constantly working on backstory and stuff like that. And so I'm about in early to mid 90s when I finally solidified who he is as a character. But so that all started from comics. That all gave me the itch to draw. Yeah. And to create my own character. And then my buddy gave me that, and I was like, all right. And then I was like, wow, this is a thing. Like I just made something. And, it's like when you start writing stories as a kid, you're like, he's off it. He's doing this. He's doing that. So that's kind of, and for me as a creator, like all those stupid stories that I had, like for the most part, I kept them as canon for my character. Right, so it gives me a lot of stuff to, to lean into, So.
Right. I think when you're that age too, you're just playing. Right, it's like playing with your action figures. Your character now, you're just playing, and these stories you're putting together. I'm sure. I mean, and I don't know. Did you even have a script, or were you just kind of drawing in it? No, right?
Man, I shot from the hip on everything. Yes. Yep. I was like, I was 10, 11. Of course, I was prone to ripping shit off. I'm like, everyone did that. Sure. Now, what do they say as artists? Now they say art is stealing, right? Is that what they say? Yeah. So, and or you use that fancy word, it's an homage. But
put the pinky in there. You gotta put the pinky in there.
This is my homage to my character. But and that's just kind of how it went. And so I shot from the hip on tons of stuff. I was also big into writing. I really enjoyed writing. And so those two kind of met somewhere in the 80s. and I was writing like one shot. Then they weren't like story; they were just stories I was writing for myself, starring this character. And sometimes I draw pictures that would go to it, but it was never like a real comic. I didn't start making like mini like ash can comic strips until like the 90s, to like late 80s, 90s, and you know, for me and my friends. I mean, I wasn't doing much else with them, but so that's kind of where it started. And so I definitely, all those characters influence this character. And when I tell people my character's influenced by the Ninja Turtles, they're like, I don't see it. I'm like, do you not see these things flying off the back of his head? My man's got tassels. He's got vest ties. That literally came from the Ninja Turtles. So much so that in my Hunter's Moon book, I actually put a couple Ninja Turtle Easter eggs in there because it was such a big deal. Well, I'll tell you what it is. When he's lifting up the manhole cover to go, and he lives in the sewer, for Christ's sakes. I mean, come on.
Gotcha. Yes.
The manhole. If you look at the manhole cover, it's literally the Ninja Turtle, the original manhole cover that they used in all their stuff, right? So I used that. I just changed the words on it, and then when he's lowering it over his head, he's got shadows across like a turtle. Just like I was just.
That's cool, man.
I'm an Easter egg nerd. Like, I eat that stuff up.
Love it.
My book is filled with it. Either nods to my friends in their books, or just nods to things that inspired the character, or that I used to draw in my old little comics for the character. Like, it's all over that book, everywhere.
Did you ever want to draw for the big two at any point?
Yeah, I got a couple "you suck" letters here somewhere. I got a couple from Marvel, you know, and from one from Jim Shooter, and the other one from I think it was from Romeo June too. It was like, they're like, hey, you know, basically, I remember I drew a Venom and I sent it in, and they basically told me, like, dude, this Venom sucks, you know, without telling you. You know, they're like, hey, you know, they tell you like stuff like, hey, you know, you should I wish I had, I'd read it to you right here. Like, you should probably learn more, take anatomy classes, you know, all that kind of stuff, and shading.
Yeah.
And then I did the other one when I sent it out, and they gave the regular form letter. The original one I sent was like, hey, you know, we're doing this. This is our submittal process. Our suggestion is you should go to a professional art school. And I'm self-taught. So, you know, I was just like, I'm not going there. I don't have that kind of, that's not going to happen. So, yeah, it sounds like, well, who knew? You know, 30-something years later, indie comics, I'll be making my own damn books.
Right. Yeah. Who knew? Who knew that you would be?
Yeah.
So now I read in what you sent us, you stepped away from it for a little while, right?
I did.
You stepped away from it. And you just recently came back to it. Can you talk a little bit about what caused you to walk away from it?
Yeah, absolutely. I drew massively in high school. I was at my most drawing this character, and just drawing in general. It was realistic in in high school. I spent a lot of time, and to so much so I had an art class, and I had the same art teacher for all the art classes, because she did advanced painting and, you know, all these different basic drawing, all this stuff. So I always took hers every year as an elective, and I wouldn't draw what she told me to draw. Like, she would be like, hey guys, today we're going to learn like still life and doing shading. And I'd be like, oh, that's cool. So here's a vase they have up there. I'm like, oh, awesome. And I'm just drawing the convictor or some other shit in my hand. And I'm applying kind of what she's teaching. So it got to the point that I did this all the time, that it was really awesome that she said to me that she just started grading me on the stuff that I was doing, as opposed to the classroom. Wow. Yeah, and that's a real teacher. That's a real artist, and that's a real person that inspires creativity. And
because she could have easily just shut it down and said, "What are you doing? You got to do it." And you could have totally just been like, "Forget this. I don't want to do this."
And I think that speaks a lot to being an artist herself, because it helped. You saw that you nurtured something somebody was doing, and that's big. So I drew all through then. I even had a convictor mini strip, comic strip I put up every week in the art class. Like, my classmates would read it, and I did that. I even in middle school, I had a comic strip in the school paper too, believe it or not. The convictor was killing, because, you know, drugs were terrible at the time. Big epidemic for crack, right? Yeah. In the 80s. So that was all that. Say no to drugs. The convictor was very much of he was a big tool back then. But you know, he's like, I'm gonna say no to drugs, you know. But anyway. Long story short, I drew all of that, and then graduated high school, and literally had a kid right out of high school. and so that kind of changed some things. I was like, shit. I'm like, I got a kid now, and so then I get a job, that kind of stuff, and then so that happened, and then I'm like, oh, got another kid now. So we got married. I get married. So there's all. I say, fast forward, I had 3 kids. Pretty much all in the early 90s. I had 3 kids. I think my son was born, my daughter Kate was born in 96.
Right.
And so I was at first, right out of high school, I was, just making kids and then I had no time to draw. It was just like, damn, I have to have a job. I'm taking care of babies. And so it was, I kind of put on a back burner. I would doodle here and there, right? And I was always, thinking about the character, I guess. I was always, because he was a big part of my life, and he really meant something to me. And so that's what happened. So 20 years later, got a job, raised a family, had another 2 kids, and so here we are. And I fast forward, I was 46 at the time, and I'm like, I'm writing a bucket list, right? Like all old people, right? I'm like, this bucket list. And now my kids are all grown now. Now, mind you, growing up through the years, my kids always saw the stuff I drew. I had folders of my old art. They always go through anything. Some of my kids are pretty artistic too, as well.
Right.
So I'm doing that and writing this bucket list, skydiving, all that kind of stuff. This shit you write, right? I'm going to do all this. And then my son is just home from the Army. He just got out of the Army, and he was home from deployment. And he said, Dad, he goes, I was literally writing this list on our patio out back, and my son's like, Dad, he's like, why don't you make a comic as part of your bucket? Why don't you make a comic for that character that and I was like, that's not a bad idea, right? So I was like, okay. Now, mind you, that was my dream as a kid, to make a true, real comic for this character, just to really make it's black and white, ash cans are great, but a real comic, right? And just to be a comic artist and have something published, I guess, is the best way to say it. So I was like, all right, it was kind of like a challenge. I like a challenge. So I ran with it, started an Instagram for my character. And so the convictor, and surprisingly, didn't realize it had a lot of attention. And I don't know, it's something because of the way he looks. Maybe I've heard references that he looks, people say, he looks like Spawn because I guess the green eyes, or and then I've heard Deathstroke references because it's yellow and black, and I'm like, whatever. At first, as a creator, you're like, oh, that's bullshit. You know what I mean? And
no, it doesn't.
But then like hell. But then you realize that people are just trying to associate it with something that's familiar to them. It's not anything. Correct. It's not a put down. It's not a slight on your art or anything. They're just trying to make it associable. And I was like, okay, once I understood that. It got a lot of attention on Instagram. He was pretty popular, and I started doing lives during the initial hit of the pandemic, like when we first all went into quarantine and all that stuff here. And so I was like, I'm going to do a live. The live on Instagram, and no one was really doing it around me. So I was like, I'm going to go on there. I was like, let's see if anybody shows up. So I go on there, and I started talking about my character. Right. And next thing I know, people were asking questions, and I talked about it more, and then I kept doing it. I would do another live, and I got more people, and I did another live, I got more people. It kind of got I didn't anticipate it, but it became a thing. Wow. And people were generally interested in my character, but what they were really interested in was my passion about my character, is what I've been told.
Right.
Yeah. And so that's kind of where it started, and that's how it all took off. So
I think it's interesting, right? Because I think we talk about this sometime with Sam. I think people invest in people, not necessarily the product. And if they like you, and if they kind of can connect with you, I think that's when the biggest support comes. Did you find that I guess, being older and stuff like that, was it challenging to now get into this new world of, oh man, Instagram and, TikTok, whatever the hell is going on now? Did you find that challenging now that you came back?
Just to circle back on, you said when I launched the first Kickstarter for Hunter's Moon, and we funded like in 90 minutes. I blew my mind. Never thought that would ever happen.
Wow.
A person I respect very much. His name is Lonzo Starr from Concrete Comics. I don't know if you know Lonzo. Lonzo called me. He was kind of a guy who had mentored me early on. I had a bunch of guys that I really looked up to that kind of like steered me in the right directions. I met him at cons and talked their ears off and everything. He said that. He called me up when we funded and he goes, "Congratulations." He goes, "What?" He's like, "This is people back this campaign because they believed in you."
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "They believed in your passion for the project. Now you have to make them love your project, love your character. Right. They backed it because of you. Now you got to make them fall in love with the character." I'm like, man, that was some pertinent information. I took that shit to heart, and I use it. I use it all the time.
Yeah.
So, all right, and back to your. Sorry, I deviated.
That's all right.
So, but I just wanted. What was your original question? I'm sorry.
No. So the challenges that you faced with this new technology now, right? Now you got Instagram, you got TikTok, and all these other fun, Kickstarter. Shoot,
man, I took a 20-year layoff from art, other than doodling. Like when I knew I was going to do this, I was serious about it. So and now it's like you're in the information age. Like Google is like the most amazing shit ever. If you want to, I mean, it's like having the Library of Alexandria at your fingertips. Like you can just anything you want is there.
That's right.
So I taught myself anatomy again. I found YouTube videos on anatomy. I retaught myself anatomy. I mean, I bought a couple anatomy books because art as an artist, art is drawing and all that stuff. That's a perishable skill, like for real. And 20-year layoff did not help me. So what I had to do was I had to learn anatomy, perspective,
right?
And all then inking. All that. And so I did that first before I did anything. I did that, and then I just said, wow, it's 2000, I don't know what time that was, 2019 is when I decided. I'm like, all right, I got to get do I do this digitally? There's that. And then that is still a monumental mountain for me to climb. I can draw digitally, no problem. Like I got a drawing monitor and I sat down one day and I drew my character because I wanted to draw the convictor. I need to know it has to look like something I would draw because there was a disconnect between pencil and paper and digital. You know what I mean? I wanted to make sure it looked like something I drew, and it did. I was very pleased with that. So my style, if you will,
your
carried.
Style, right? Yeah.
And so I can do that, but then coloring, like, man, hell no. Like that is like I would have to spend 6 months in a tutorial.
That's hard.
Bro, it's crazy.
That is
like
hard.
I could put flats on it and stuff.
Right.
Like paint, fill, bucket. I could do that, but other than like I'm still learning. Like every time I get on here, I'm still learning layers, and there's always learning something every time I'm using. And I use Clip Studio Paint, so it's really for the idiot. So that works out great for me. It's really dumbed down, so I'm happy. So, but then I see other people like whipping up things. I'm like, I can't do that. But yes, it was hard for me. It's still hard for me.
Yeah.
I still do traditional art. I like Hunter's Moon was all traditional. It was traditional art, and I inked it myself. The only thing that was digital, obviously, was the lettering and the coloring.
And the coloring, right?
And the coloring, yeah. And this next book I'm working on, the one we just kickstarted, just wrapped up Kickstarted. That one I'm doing traditional as well. But I do want to do a digital book. It's just I want to be to the point where I'm super comfortable with it.
Yeah.
I've done some digital pinups and stuff, start to finish, that I'm pleased with. I just, bro, I'm telling you right now, it's hard to turn away from pencil and pen. It's hard to step away from that as a traditional artist. It's rough.
No, it's true, man. It's true.
Yeah,
you know, but it's like you said, right? It's a perishable skill, and I think what the digital does for you, I think, is like when our eyesight start going, we can just zoom that backward right up, and you can get right in there. You know what I mean?
And the undo and the erase.
Oh yeah, there you go. So there are perks to it as we get older.
Yes.
You know what I mean? As we get older, there are perks.
There's one page in Hunter's Moon that I worked on so hard that I ended up racing a whole way through the board because I was constantly racing on, and I was constantly trying to redo it. And I tell myself, I'm like, man, digital, that wouldn't happen. But that being said, there's a page. There's a page in a book where the convictor is initially running into these special operations troops.
Yes.
You know, they run with the hell. One guy gets hit in the goggles and he gets hit in the nose. The nose is where I put a hole in the paper. I raced that, and I was like, well, I guess he's getting shot twice. So I made it. I put it in. That's. So I got there's tons of that. And that's cool because you have that story because it's traditional art. I wouldn't have that story if it wasn't. So it's kind of a trade-off. It's like back and forth.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. But we're talking about the convictor a little bit, and let's just switch gears a little bit and tell us about the convictor, the Hunter's Moon. Tell us a little bit about the story. I mean, you told us how you created the character, but tell us about this particular adventure, so to speak. You have Dracula in there. You have the werewolf. So tell us how all that came together.
All right. Well, what happened was back to Instagram. Instagram was I attribute Instagram to a lot of my original Kickstarter success. A lot of my characters, to the acknowledgements and the people that are familiar with it, it's because of Instagram. We do well on Instagram and we have a lot of interactions. So that was coming. I was doing those lives, those Instagram lives, and I did a thing around Halloween. I said, "What if I could take the convictor and have him?" We did a poll on the Instagram story, have him fight any classic movie monster, who would it be? You know, I had the werewolf, the mummy, Dracula, Creature in the Black Lagoon, Frankenstein too. And it was dead. It was neck and neck there between Dracula and the Wolfman for a hot minute. And then one day, because he ran it a couple days, and then Wolfman trounced it. The Wolfman won, hands down, landslide. And so I was like, oh, because I promised I would make it into like a mini comic, right? I was going to do a mini comic, like a one-shot mini comic. I was going to draw it up like, if we're familiar with the Bat in the Sun indie films, right, where they take like Scorpion versus a Power Ranger, and it was like, here they are, they're fighting. I was going to do the same thing. No real story. Convictor's here, Wolfman shows up, fight, basically like that. And I was going to do, like 16 pages, whatever. And but then I realized, I'm like, Dracula was also pretty popular in the polls. So I sat back and I started looking at the story. I was like, you know what? It started from like a small mini comic, and then it kind of grew into like its own story. Dracula was sending the Wolfman after the convictor, because the convictor is, a character that very much does most of his operating at nighttime. And for some reason, Dracula's really bent out of shape about it. So that's how we started with the story. And it grew, and the more each draft I wrote, it grew more and more to the point where I had to step back from it, and I realized that this could actually fit in, because I already had a story arc for my character. I had about 10 or 12 books that I wanted for the convictor. He has a very specific trajectory, his story arc. I'm starting here, and he has a very definitive end. But then the more I wrote this Hunter's Moon story, I realized that this could really fit into the overall mythos of my character. It could really fit into the arc. And so I started adding elements from my larger arc into that book, so it would kind of go in seamlessly. And it wasn't supposed to be my first convicted book. My convicted book, Resurgence, the one I just finished up on Kickstarter, that was supposed to be the original convicted book. But Hunter's Moon kind of took a life of its own, so we ran with it. People were interested. I was interested. And I mean, I don't know, man, as a kid, and that's the thing, I keep going back and appealing to like my 10 or 12-year-old self. Yeah. Because that's who I made. That's who I'm making a convicted book for. It's that kid. It's that kid's dream of making a comic that I'm trying to live up to. So I sat back. I was like, man, as a kid, I would have lost my shit if it was a ninja fighting a werewolf. Like that would have, man, if that doesn't say 80s, I don't know what does. And because I had a toy in the 80s that was like a ninja that was a werewolf. It was crazy. And I was like, I'm like, nah, we're running with it. And then I said, Dracula, hell yeah. So yeah, and it kind of grew, and I realized I could fit it in the overall story arc. So that's kind of what we did. And because Convictor himself, once he is a supernatural character. He has supernatural elements to him. I was very in this Hunter Moon book. I was very vague about a lot of things because it's on purpose, and things are just because each book will show you a different portion of the character. That's my plan.
And I'll say this, Jason. It is vague, and I say not in a negative way. I think it's a fun read because it forces you to peel back that onion. Like there are layers to this shit. Like, and I don't want to spoil anything to anybody who's going to read the book, but just when you think it's done, you do something that you're like, oh shoot, there's more. It's very well done, and I like some of the stuff that you incorporated because you have a lot of like that. You obviously it's Dracula and the werewolf, right? But then you have like these special ops teams that are there on a mission to do it, and you're like, what the hell was this mission? What's going on? So there are a lot of questions that you're left with, and there is. I mean, I think you teased. There's another. Obviously, there's a second part to this thing.
Yes.
Are you planning?
Okay.
No, I was gonna say, are you planning to? Is that the next story that you're bringing out, or is that gonna?
I had to go back and I wanted to bring Resurgence out because Resurgence was the book I was originally going to do. Hunter's Moon is part of a 3-book trilogy.
Okay.
So now Hunter's Moon and Resurgence, let's see, again, the last book I just wrapped up on Kickstarter. They're both happen within the same 6 months, so they're both a year. In my book, they're a year. In my world, they're a year too. Mm-hmm. So they are interchangeable in a sense, but Hunter's Moon's has 2 other parts. Has Black Moon and Blood Moon are 2 other parts and I'm going to be doing them at the same time and sending them out to Kickstarter at the same time. So no one's going to have to wait. So you're going to get 2 and 3 initial because I want to get those. I really like to shoot for those around Halloween next year. That's the plan.
Good for you, man. Good.
Yeah, I'll probably do those digitally.
Yeah, there you go.
Playing games.
It sounds like you knocked these books out in a decent amount of time. Like it sounds like you. How long? Right.
Hunter's Moon was an issue for us. So to be frank, we launched that in August of 2020. And we had a couple hiccups going in because we had settled in on our team. We had a colorist and we had a letter and everything. And I was doing the art and the inking. So what ended up happening was our colorist had a personal issue arise and he had to step off the project. He stepped off the project probably about 10 pages in. So now if the colors, like I didn't want to just take those 10 pages and get a new colorist and have it look different. I didn't want that because I wanted it all to look the same. So I went on a search. I had to go on a search for new colors. I had to interview people and samples and all this kind of stuff. And believe it or not, my friend Chris, who from Homebrew Comics, he had his colors he offered to me. He said, would you be interested? And I talked to his colorist, and his colorist his name's Cristiano Cruz, and he was like, yeah, he'll do it. I'm like, oh, thank God. So I had to have him recolor all those other pages because I wanted them to all flow. He has a very unique coloring style, and I didn't want any changes there. So we had to go back and recolor the book, and so that set us back because it took us about a month to find somebody we needed. And then he had to recolor the base. So that set us back on our Kickstarter a few months. Like it was painful. You feel bad. You tell people to get a book. But that being said, it gave me an opportunity to rewrite the script. Once I knew I had some time here,
right.
I had 2 versions of the script that I really liked. And then the third one that I used, the original script for the book I wasn't thrilled with. It didn't show for me a lot of the convictor, his personality trait that he has. And he has one personality trait above all else. It's like, I actually call it, he's not superhuman, but he has a superhuman personality trait. He has a thing that we call indomitable will. He was given unbreakable will. And so much so, it's his, like I always say, it's his greatest strength and his greatest weakness. He will literally die before he would give up. Like if you read the book,
Yes,
right. So about 10
Yep.
pages, he took an ass whooping, and
Yeah.
and he kept trying to come back for more because that's his personality.
Correct.
Again, it's his strength and a weakness at
That's
the same
interesting.
time.
Yeah,
And,
that's interesting.
And so those 10 pages are the rewrite. I didn't like the initial battle. I didn't show enough of his indomitable will. So I went back and I was waiting to find new colors, and he was coloring these other pages. And I went back and reworked the script and added 10 more pages. That book it was originally going to be, I don't know, it became 36 pages because it might be a much larger book. So because of that, it worked out in my favor. And I honestly feel now that setback with having the colorist step off and having to search for new one, it all happened for a reason, because I can honestly say now I delivered the best possible book I could have, because I was never truly satisfied with the original version of that script. So now I am. I look back, I'm like, it's perfect.
Yeah,
so.
it's funny because we were just having a conversation about how many pages are in a comic book, and when you are an indie like we are, like you are right now, you are able to go back and say, you know what, I'm going to add 10 pages to that book. If you were working for maybe another company or something like that, you can't make those decisions. So that's not your decision to make. It's like, yo, dude, this has to be 24. That's what you got to give me.
I was happy that I was able to do that, because I was able to develop the convictor's personality trait, and I was able to develop Dracula more, because I really wanted to sell Dracula as the real POS that he is. I really wanted people to hate him. That was my goal as a writer.
Good job.
Because if Dracula's been done a million times, you know what I mean, and it's hard to reinvent a character that's being reinvented over and over. And then I decided to go another route with my Wolfman. I didn't go the typical route. And I was able to experiment. So I get a lot of feedback from that book where people are like, man, I literally wanted to beat the S out of Dracula. I hate that guy. I'm like, that's the plan.
Well, and you feel for the Wolfman. Like you know what I mean? Like he becomes a likable character because, you know. So good, very, very, very well done, very well done. And you know what? Like I really can't wait to see where you take the next two books.
Yeah, working on right now. So
do you have a regular schedule when you go do your live drawings, or?
No, I'm random as F. So I'll sit here and I'll do I have my art, like this is my digital desk right behind me, and then my traditional art desk is right over here. And I'll do it. And some days, like if it's in the afternoon, I'm like, you know what? Because people backed the comic, and now that the promotion's over for the Resurgence and the promotion's over for the Kickstarter, like my only goal now is to put teases out so people see, hey, I backed this. Oh, the book is getting done. There's bits and pieces of it. So I'll do a live draw. I'll put down the camera mount. I'll draw, do I have a schedule? No. If I do it, it's usually because I have in the mid afternoons, like around, I don't know, probably noon sometimes on the East Coast here. But so I could just say I have a real schedule. No. No. It's when I remember to do it, I should say. Right?
So what are your social handles?
Sure. You can get me on Instagram at the Convictor. It's _convictor. You can also get our imprint, our publishing house, which is Pharo's Creative Studios. We're also on YouTube too. We have a YouTube channel, Pharo's Creative Studios. If you go right to my Instagram handle, you go in there. We have a link tree. It's got all that good stuff on it. I know you guys got a link tree too. convictorcomics.com. PharosCreativeStudios.com. Yeah, I get all. We're on Facebook too. You put any of those into Facebook, you'll find us too. So we're up there too. Yeah, we're all over the damn place.
You're killing it, man. You're doing very well. You're a young 40-something going into 50. Don't even think about it. There you go. You're a young 49. Man.
I said to my wife, I'm like, man, I need to get these books out before I die because I can't trust anybody else to do these things. If I get the Convictor story completely out, because like I said, I have a very definitive end for the character, and all these books are leading up to, I guess, for lack of a better term, my end game. You know what I mean? Which is like a very end, and that's it. That's the characters put to bed, and then I have many other characters that I've been, he wasn't the only one. I have tons of other characters, and I would start working on them, I hope. So,
just subscribe to your channel.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, bro. I appreciate
Awesome.
it. Thanks.
Awesome. Jason,
Yeah,
thank
we
you so
do
much,
some
man.
stuff. No,
Yeah,
got it,
thank
man.
you so much
Thanks,
for
guys.
coming on and talking
Thanks
to
for making time for me. I
Dude,
appreciate
there's
it.
just so much to unpack, and I can't wait to read more of your stuff. So I'm definitely going to follow. Obviously, I'm following the Instagram already, so I'll be looking out for that. I'm going to subscribe to the channel, and you can come back whenever you want. You got some stuff coming out. Let us know.
Anytime you want me, I will show. I love to talk. If anyone doesn't know, I can talk with the best of them, and I think it's my superpower by running my mouth. But yeah, you guys, this has been a pleasure. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
No
And,
Awesome,
problem,
buddy.
man.
Awesome.
And you guys, really, and you guys at Kickstarter too, yeah?
Yeah, the Kickstarter is launching February 15th. The landing page
alright.
is live now.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So we'll see each other again.
Notify on that. Yeah, we'll be out there. All right.
There you go.
All right, boys.
You got it,
Thanks
buddy.
so much, Jason. You take care, man.
Thanks, guys.
Peace.
No, thank you. Appreciate it, bro.
All right. All right. So that was Jason Pharo, and really good interview. I really it's always fun to talk to someone from our era.
So many things in common.
Yes, back when Moses walked the earth, and
But you know what? It's funny because he has a very similar story, right? Like he
Yes.
walked away from it, comes back much years later, and I think that's part like what he said at the end, right? You have to finish your stories. It's like you come back to finish your stories because you have to publish that story before you die,
Yes.
and that like it sounds grim, but. Yo, it's the reality, dude. We're all mortal. It's not gonna be forever. And the fact that he came back and his story is really good. It's very well written. I enjoyed it. I did see a lot of that, like what he said, that vagueness, but obviously he left it open because there are 2 more stories that are coming out. And so kudos to Jason. Thank you so much for being on the show. And if you guys get a chance, make sure you go to _convictor on Instagram. I'm sure we're going to have the links on the show notes. But yeah, give him a follow, subscribe to the channel, and show the man some love. He's doing his thing.
yeah, I really enjoyed the show. Really enjoyed talking to him. Much success to him and everything that he's doing. Has the right mindset, right attitude, is having fun. I mean, that's the best.
Yeah.
That's the only thing you can ask for is have fun, man.
That's
It's
right.
if you're not having fun, then why are you doing it?
True. True.
But that's another great episode of Catch the Craze podcast. Again, if you want to be a guest on the show, all you have to do is go to crazycomics.com, fill out the form, and we'll book you onto the show. And if you like this episode, give us a thumbs up. Please subscribe, hit that bell to be reminded of all our shows. We have nothing but amazing guests, and help us grow, because the more we grow, the more our guests get to reach a broader, wider audience.
That's right.
With that said, and don't forget, sign up to the landing page on There's an Alien in My Toilet right
Do it
now.
Now.
It's right now. It's live. So sign up and be one of the first to have fun and laugh. With that said,
go.
I'm Sam the Crazy Man Vera,
George the Dreamer Medina.
and we are out.
It's just easy. It's not.
Crazy. Acquiesce.
No, I was talking about my friend Acquiesce. I met him. Say my name, right?
This is what you were thinking? Oh, my.
He described me. He said, I'm the
What? Catch the Craze. You're listening to Catch the Craze. You're listening to Catch the Craze. To Catch the Craze. You are listening to Catch the Craze on Catch the Craze. You're listening to Catch the Craze.